What we do now then?
I don't know.
What's the fastest anybody's done on the motorway?
95?
And then you woke up.
You must be dreaming out of your cotton picking mind.
Today we do the ton.
Douchebag with a gun here. Last episode, my buddy Jarhead loaned me his Q Sugar Weasel to share with y'all. Now that one was so much fun to fondle that I felt the need to one-up myself. So, I made a few calls, skipped a few mortgage payments on my new trailer so that I could bring you something special. This is exactly the kind of thing my brother Dick would make fun of me for.
Everybody knows you never go full retard.
So, since my brother is likely to disown me, and my wife is likely to divorce me for spending all our mortgage money, this may be my last video. So, let's go out with a bang. The Q Honey Badger. Breaking with tradition, I'm going to start off by talking about the history of this firearm a little bit. In my 300 AAC Blackout video, I talked about how the cartridge was developed in response to a SOCOM unit that wanted an upper receiver for their M4 that was chambered in 7.62 by 39. Well, that ended up evolving into what would become the 300 AAC Blackout cartridge. And while AAC was making uppers for SOCOM unit, they proposed making a purpose-built carbine built around the cartridge that they could use to replace the MP5 SD that was already in that SOCOM unit's arsenal. This gun was actually designed with a few limitations in mind. It had to have a certain signature reduction and the same overall dimensions as an MP5 SD, but it had to be lighter, a lot lighter. And all that is going to help explain some of the design choices that ended up being made as they were going through this thing. The original Honey Badgers ended up shipping with a stumpy little 4.25 inch barrel, because the silencer needed to be stupid long in order to meet the signature requirements. Coined by the military as the low visibility assault weapon, the rifle ended up being coined the Honey Badger by Kevin Brittingham because he couldn't remember the acronym the military was using for it, and the YouTube video of the kid ranting about the Honey Badger that didn't give a shit was really popular at the time.
This is the Honey Badger. Watch it run in slow motion. It's pretty badass. Look, it runs all over the place. Whoa, watch out, says that bird. Ew, it's got a snake. Oh, it's chasing a jackal. Oh my gosh. Oh, the Honey Badgers are just crazy.
So, the Honey Badger was built by AAC, but it was never really commercialized. It was only meant for that SOCOM unit. When Kevin Brittingham started Q, he still owned the rights to the weapon and decided to make and sell it to the commercial market. He didn't expect make a ton of them, but he was doing consultant work for a Call of Duty game and managed to get the gun slipped into the game for a bit. And the next thing you know, it's kind of got a huge cult following. Now, with all that out of the way, let's start talking about this fucker. The gun weighs 5 pounds 6 ounces stripped buck naked. The overall length is 26 inches collapsed and 31 inches fully extended. Now, if you haven't already looked one of these up, then I will spare you the 30 seconds of Googling. The MSRP on this particular configuration of the gun is $3,500.
Are you okay?
I'm fine. I just threw up in my mouth a little bit.
Then you need to pay $400 for tax stamps. One for being an SBR, the other for this guy.
You serious?
Now you can find some great videos on this firearm. Kit Badger did a deep dive series building out one of these guys with the Q engineers a couple years back. I'd highly recommend that, as it goes into a lot more of the specifications about the engineering that I ain't going to bother to get into here. Alabama Arsenal also did a video on one of his channels, and I don't know what that boy does for a living, but I need his job because he's got all kinds of cool shit. I mentioned in my Sugar Weasel video, but it's worth repeating in case you didn't watch that one. The color scheme of the Honey Badger is clear anodizing. The reaction of the anodizing on the aluminum and the different grades of aluminum is what causes the different colors that get here. Now, clear anodizing is supposedly stronger than if you were to add in pigment, and since this gun was specifically built for a military contract, it was understood that the SOCOM unit would be rattle cannon the gun anyway. So, all that out of the way, let's go over this gun from ass to mouth, because that's how I roll. On the ass end is a proprietary stock and receiver extension. Stock butt pad is polymer and has an aggressive texture to it. It's also small, has an angle cut that works great if you are wearing plates or have a backpack on. Now the receiver extension has a polymer sleeve over the top that you can use for your cheek weld. Now the receiver extension is completely custom for this firearm, and now this comes over the overall length limitations. They needed to cut back. They couldn't use a standard buffer tube on here because it was going to make the gun too long. So in order to keep the gun as quiet as it needed to be, they needed the silencer to be yay big, and that means they had to cut off some length someplace. They also wanted the PDW style stock because that's what was on the MP5SD, so they were trying to keep it traditional in that regard. So this uses a proprietary system for the buffer spring and the way it interacts with the bolt carrier group. And we'll get into that when we take it apart. Lower is milled to keep the rails in tight. So this is all completely custom. Upper and lower receiver are milled. Very high quality, very nice machine work. The lower features an MOE-K grip from Magpul. Again, simple, lightweight. You can still swap it out if you wanted to, but this is as good as it gets, and you don't really need to go any different. The safety selector, which is ambidextrous, is also radian, and it is custom. This has a 70-degree throw because the 45-degree throws that have been kind of popular these days are not quite as safe as this can be. So, I don't know. They find it to be an improvement. I've never had a gun go off with a 45-degree, but whatevs. The trigger that originally shipped with the gun was the AR Gold trigger, and I didn't like it at all. It was kind of a stupid short pull, but it was spongy, and there was no reset. So it was just, I'm sure lots of people like that trigger, but it just had a very, very weird feel to me. I like very tactile triggers, and I like very tactile resets. I'm used to shooting Glock pistols, and I kind of like my triggers to be more responsive, if you will. I also love Geisley, and I buy Geisley triggers for pretty much everything. So I upgraded this to a Geisley trigger, and that was around the same time that Q had started shipping these guns with Geisley triggers. Now I know Q is going to be someday releasing the best trigger ever made. But they've been talking about that trigger for about 2 years now, and it ain't ever coming out in my lifetime the way things are moving. So fuck them. I didn't want to wait. I bought myself a Geisley. The lower receiver does have an obnoxiously awesome milled magwell that is very highly flared. So you have no problem stuffing your feedy devices up into the feedy hole.
I'm talking about balls deep.
The charging handle that ships with it is from Radian. So very nice charging handles. I tend to put Radians in all my guns anyway. This is not a gas busting model, and it is branded with the Q logo, as if anybody gives a shit about that. Now we'll go over the top real quick before I break it apart. Got some Midwest Industries backup sights, and I put them on there just because EOTech's batteries are not the most reliable. They do drain the battery pretty quickly. So it's got an EOTech, and it's the kind with the night vision. So if I need to put on my see-in-the-dark goggles, I can do that. And going all the way up, we do have the Steiner D-Ball I squared, and we've got a Surefire KM1-E, and this has the white light as well as the IR. So got them both running to mod buttons back here that I can easily access by reaching over at the top without having to do some stupid C-clamp nonsense. The barrel is 7 inches with a 1 in 5 twist. The 1 in 5 twist, as we discussed, is the new hot shit, and is what makes this gun very different from a lot of the older, earlier generation 300 Blackout weapons. The silencer is proprietary to the Honey Badger, so it's the Honey Badger silencer. And you can only get it if you buy the SD model of the weapon. You cannot buy these separate. It is not quite as quiet as their full Nelson, or probably even about as equivalent to their Trash Panda. But it does not have as much volume. It's not as big and girthy. But it is stupid lightweight and very effective. It is direct thread to the barrel, so you can take it off if you're He-Man.
I say, don't be a girly man.
But with the tapers and everything, it stays on there pretty good. And I don't have to take it off unless I'm cleaning the gun. So we'll try and take this thing apart, and I'm going to show you how it explodes when you pop out the pins, because of this stupid ass design that comes with trying to keep the gun so short and compact. So there's your buffer spring, and then you have this little butt plug that goes into the back of your bolt carrier. Other than that, there's a guide rod in there that holds the spring and keeps it from getting bent up and twisted to shit when you're trying to put the gun back together, which I'm going to show you in a second is kind of a shit show. Now, unlike with the Sugar Weasel, this bolt and carrier is stamped with the MP on the bolt. Doesn't even bother having any of the forward assist markings, because there's no forward assist on this weapon. It is very high quality, properly staked on the gas key, and this sucker is built like a tank. Probably some Israelis that made it. So if you wanted to put this thing back together, it's kind of a circus. You have to take your spring, feed it onto the guide tubey thingy that's in there. Then put the butt plug into the back of the bolt carrier, and then you got to kind of feed it all back onto there without bending your spring all to shit. And if you get lucky enough to do it right, pop your pins, and there she blows. So was it worth the price?
Oh, hell no!
Well, if there's no video next week, you'll know that it was not worth the price at all. But this gun shoots fantastic. It is very soft shooting, it is fun, and it is very accurate. Now, comparing this to the Sugar Weasel that my buddy Jarhead owns, I can't tell much of a difference in the accuracy and the handling overall, except that mine's a little bit more heavy on the front end because all the shit I got up here. The fantastic millwork, craftsmanship, it is a high quality weapon, there is no doubt. All these upgrades didn't really need to be made. Didn't have to change much of anything. Right out of the box, this thing came pretty much ready to go, except that there was no optic and no iron sights. This gun is fantastic, and it might have cost me my marriage. It certainly cost me more blood and semen than I really wanted to spare, but I absolutely love it, and I'm going to keep it till the day I die, which will probably be next week. So that's about all I got to say. I'm going to probably hit the high and dusty one, call it a career on the YouTubes, and go drink some whiskey and watch Douchebag's brother Dick.
So here's what. You slip me a bottle of bourbon, a little glass, and some ice.
Thank you for watching. Thanks for all those people that did subscribe. And remember, I don't know who you are out there, but I got a gun. And this is a damn nice one.